Hello world, Frida Reba Darcy and Patricia O'Conor here. Today it is, well, let's see, it has been since December 25th since we have done our last video. And what we're doing now is starting off our new year with a sunny day. What I have been doing is taking a little bit of time off. I haven't been hurting nobody. I hadn't been doing nothing. I've just been kind of, I've been in a different work schedule over the holiday period, and the end of this week marks my return to normalcy. And so with that going on, we have had a bunch of storms kind of piled up offshore. In fact, there's still some more, but today was a beautiful day. I should be able to upload this guy fairly quickly. And while we've been going through the little bit of holidays and while everybody was on the internet, I just decided to not sweat it. I thought the traffic was kind of slow right now for us anyway. And I just kind of took the time. I enjoyed the rainy days. Frida and I kind of bundled up. But now, enough of all of that. There are things going on. This is an update. What this is going to be an update. I want to start with a couple of things. 12 is the number on the seedlings, on the pine tree seedlings. Today, those pine tree, Japanese black pines that I started from seed will each one get a cube of BioGold, and we'll go out there. That's one thing that I'll be doing today. And then we're going to go through and do our walk through the balcony. I want to also talk about one other thing. You can see here, I've got the red case out. I've got all of this stuff out. In fact, I can start consolidating this. The point of it is done. When I was, I did a video a couple of weeks ago where we did work on our bald cypress trees. We did a little bit of carving work on our bald cypress. And in preparation for that, I decided to pull out all my tools, make sure I had all the router bits ready. I didn't know if I was going to do that with a sanding disc with a heavy piece of grit on it, kind of like a grinder, which I did use. Or I didn't know if I was going to use my Makita router with some sort of woodchuck bit, which I did use. Or I didn't know if I was going to fully just rely on my steel chainsaw, which I also used. So the answer was, between the three trees, I used all of them. And beforehand, I wanted to make sure everybody was charged up. So to that end, when I went to charge this battery, plugged it into this charger, I got a blinking red light, which on this setup, on different companies, your lights, green usually means everything's charged. Red, sometimes on, red, solid, means it's charging. That's just the way the Milwaukee stuff works. And a flashing red means error, or it's not plugged in all the way to the charger, or the battery is dead, finished, toss it, recycle it, whatever. So I thought that was a drag, especially since it wasn't something that I had used to death. Just the opposite. I probably used the screw gun 2 or 3 times a year. The battery that I pulled out of the case and charged the first time is probably the one that stays plugged into it. And I usually throw it back in the charger when I'm done with it. So I'd never used this battery, and I had allowed it. I'd never used this battery, and I allowed it to die. So what I learned a little trick. It wasn't actually that something had broken inside the battery. It's that it had lost so much charge that the charger would not recognize it. It would say, yeah, something's up here. You plugged in something, but it's not a battery. And then it would just blink a red light, meaning no good. That's not going to happen today. So the secret to that was, I watched their trick, and they used like 2 little pieces of wire that were like would be left over from if you were wiring in outlets. I didn't even use coated wire. I used highly conductive copper wire that had no jacket on it. And the secret to fixing this is plug a wire into this guy and the same side on the other battery. You see the way they're both facing front? And then plug a wire on this side to this side of their battery and leave that in there. They said, when on the one I saw on the video, the guy did that for 3 minutes and he got the dead battery to accept just enough charge that way that it was no longer flat dead, so that when he plugged it into his charger, from then on it took off just like day one, just like it was new. No harm, no foul. Nothing was actually used up. It was just under depleted to the point to where it wouldn't recognize it as something that was supposed to be charged. So I thought I would pass that along. You just basically take 2 wires and make contact with that side and that side. Now they're labeled. That's another way. On the one that on the demonstrate, I think it was a DeWalt, and those were labeled A and B, A and B, and A goes to A and B goes to B. Okay. On these, they're plus and minus, so just exactly the same thing. Plus goes to plus, minus goes to minus. Now, because it's DC, which means it was battery powered, I got away with using, low voltage battery power. I got away with using 2 bare wires, but had I touched those wires together while they were hooked up, it may have made a spark. It may have damaged the ends where they were making contact with the little spark. It might have left a little spark burn mark on the ends of those, or it may have blown an internal fuse had they had those. So that was the risk I was taking. I don't think I was in risk of actually getting a shock unless maybe I stood and I don't know how I would do that. DC is direct current is a little different than typical AC. But anyway, I thought I would pass that tip along, and that absolutely worked. I didn't show you the light charging beforehand. I just wanted to see if it would work before, and I figured if I shot that on the video and it wouldn't work, then I would just be tossing the battery and wasting time. So I thought I could still tell you exactly what I did and exactly how it worked, in case it did. And for me, it did. So that saved that battery. All right, now that's got us up to there. Now let's talk turkey. Let's talk trees. My Japanese black pines are looking pretty good. I think the color is overall pretty good. Where are we on enlargement? No, we're not over enlarged, but it's pretty happy looking tree. Both of them are just filling out. Those needles are a little long on that guy. I have noticed that a few of mine are still pretty yellow. Our cork bark oak is, I would say our cork bark oak has really been enjoying the rain, and I rotated it around. Now I'm looking at what I used to call the front. The tree doesn't have to my way of thinking, it does not have a bad side. I call this the front because it has a bend to it. It's bending. It's like bent like that, and that's bowing towards us. So that's kind of why I call that the front on there. Our trident maple, I don't mind the shape of it right there. I think that's a nice looking shape. I mean, cut it back height-wise. A couple of y'all, when we did our first printing, when I did it on camera, I made an idea going in, and a lot of times I won't change my ideas mid-flight. I'll go ahead and shoot the video knowing that if I want to change it, I can later. But I tend not to try to change ideas too much in video, because I'm afraid the idea of making a video might cause me to do something a little spontaneous. Just kind of, slow your roll when it comes to, oh, I can just, yeah. Anyway, I could have. I could have cut that back a lot more. And after I did a show about this, I went back through, and a couple of y'all said something. I would cut that back more, and we did. And I thought for a second it looks like it was almost ready to start budding out. I wouldn't. Today is warm. A couple of days like today, and that thing will. Uh, it is a pretty happy. What if I always felt like this part of the tree was just too elongated, and I wasn't really crazy about the way it divides into three after such a long run. What if I air layered that guy down here somewhere? Like that. Air layered it and made a straight tree out of it, like that, even, right? And then maybe took some of these down. I think if I did that, I think that's the one thing I could see me doing with this tree that I would probably like in a couple of years. My other ideas about how to make that a more desirable tree would make that almost a lifetime project that I'm not sure I'm that excited about. Anyway, if you have an idea about possibly what I could do if I air layered that tree, we might get back buds down here, and I could still have a lower, or we might not. I might get all of this to do what I want it to do. We cut that, transfer that over, and this does it make. I mean, just because, but the tourniquet and all that other stuff you tend to do when you air layer that, I'm betting that it would probably back bud down low with all that going on. And if we wanted to, we could pick up from down there. And if I did that, I would probably cut this off, cut that much off to bring, everything would be this. That's probably like I had intended, and then bring this branch back down to there. So everything would be lower and then have that same girth. And then a lot of times when you air layer these guys, if you get good root distribution all the way around, that's a huge plus. Also, that's an opportunity to work with that. People put them on discs or plant them root over something to make the roots give us more of that. So that's stuff to think about. And whenever I have it pruned back like that, it's a good time to look at it and visualize what it is you could do to what is it I could do to be happier with this tree. I don't think it's a bad tree. I don't think I'm maximizing this tree's full potential. Those two things. Yeah, those two things. Okay, next I'm going to jump down to the bald cypress. I'm watching a lot of videos while I've been catching up, and a lot of people call these swamp cypress. Maybe it's just because I'm from the wetlands, but I always thought the term swamp was derogatory. If a boat capsizes, some people telling the tale will say it's swamped, if you are looking at, people have described things as an unsightly mess and said they looked like a swamp. Or someone will say something is unkept and they will say it's time to drain the swamp. So I've never really loved the term swamp cypress. They're bald cypress. Sometimes, and they're called bald cypress because in the winter they lose their leaves. I've also heard them called red cypress because of the color of the foliate. The color of the leaves in winter is a pretty hard rust red. These guys are right now, they are making mass down low. They're making a lot of roots, and this is the time of year that I would expect to see the trunks to get fatter. In the fall, when we don't have, in the fall and in the winter, when when we don't have all that all the leaves and stuff, all the foliage on the trees, is the time of the year that we build roots and we build girth in the trunk and in the, hopefully more taper. But looking at this guy, I also see a few things that, because I made these decisions while I was shooting videos, they're not. I looked at them and I go, why did you leave those bark branches there? That's pretty close to a bar branch. That's kind of a bar branch. As is that. As is that. And what would be the the point in my leaving those was, between now and spring, they're on the cusp of a size that may or may not make it to the next spring. That could all die back between now and spring. I would expect there to be, in years past, this year as well, I'm sure, it will be prolific with buds and shoots all throughout. If I cut one of those two bar branches now, I might be cutting the one that would have survived between the two. So there are sometimes when I make that call a little later, but I won't always do that. And if I have a bar branch there, even in the winter, I will watch and see if it looks like that energy in that branch is starting to cause that to make a knuckle. And if it looks like that's happening, because your trees do get thicker and fatter in the winter, as does the roots get thicker and fatter. So it's not just sitting there totally dormant, not doing anything. So that's kind of like, sometimes I make these decisions while I'm shooting things, and they don't settle into my memory the same way if I was conscientious looking back printing. As I recall, we defoliated this tree, and then we went right back around and started making our selection for next year. And some people like to prune these things back in the summer whenever they get really prolific, so that they can see the structure and see the tree. I'm not a big, maybe you do that if your tree is closer to a finished tree. Right now we have a lot of taper, a lot of trunk and fat and girth, and a lot of taper to make more than anything else. So all of that stuff that it puts out in abundance, we keep until the fall, and then when it has been there, gotten energy, thrown it into the tree, and then exchanges from the foliage to the limbs and to the, working its way back into the system of the tree. That's whenever we defoliate the tree, and that's whenever we cut back all the branches that we're not going to want. I don't tend to do that during the summer. I'll let all that stuff make all that good old energy, because we have a lot of growing to do on these guys, and trying to keep it manicured back to something, or worried about this branch overshadowing that branch. We have lights, let everything get something, and we have lights coming from two different directions. So we're just going to try to let that work for us on our bald cypress. So that's got us up to there. Oh yeah, one other thing. 3 years ago yesterday is when I replanted that guy. So I could probably go one more year, but this year I should probably try to find. I think that my cork bark oak might be underpotted. I'm going to come back and look at this. I think this cork bark oak might be underpotted. It'll grow more if yeah. So in the next year, I should probably make a point to give myself some options, get myself an unglazed option for that guy. Speaking of oaks, this guy's looking really good. The rain that we've been having has made my job quite a bit easier. It's just about been taking care of itself in the current in the current weather. We've been enjoying the this is, you can see the moss is growing in now. This is where I took some sphagnum moss and I took some lumps of moss that were already growing in there that I liked, and I let those the green moss that was growing in there dry out, and then I sifted it, remixed it with the sphagnum moss, and then sprinkled it over the top dressing, and it looks like it's starting to take root pretty good. These are all of our little pines. They're all just hanging out, loving the sun. It looks like it's time to go through and replace their bottle gold. We can do that. And here is our trays of ponderosas and black pines. One ponderosa and 4 black pines. 2 of them look really green. One of them looks really yellow, and one of them looks kind of yellow. I think they'll all be fine. It's just what they do. Our other pines over here are all in some stage of winter yellow or not. Some of them are just absolutely. This ponderosa seems to be pretty happy with things the way they are. I wish the trees didn't get. And I see Japanese growers. Sometimes you'll see a nail head sticking up in the soil, and I've heard that explained that for this reason, to get that yellow away. So I don't know. I don't want to go harpooning the roots. My Dawn Redwood is getting fat. The little bit where I was just talking about winter is the time for roots and trunks. That little part was spurred on by the observation that the bark down low is splitting and looking dead, because it is. It's about ready to let go. There's a lot, it's getting wide, and this stuff is starting to split. So I'll look forward to seeing all the buds and all the new growth on this guy. And we're at that point now where we just gotta wait it out and wait and see what it does between now and spring. And I always worry that it may not come back or something. We have had hit and miss with this tree in the past, and I think right now is one of those moments where I have it on a path that I kind of like. I could weed it already again, but I do have it on a path I kind of like, and so far so good. That's kind of what I got going there. I'm building something with that. Now I look forward to cleaning this up next, but we don't have a whole lot of growth. I want to put energy back in the tree with everything that it has. That will, yeah. So that's kind of what we're doing there. And so far, for the first time in over a year, I like where the Dawn Redwood is going. I like the direction it's taken. This is Simply Pea, and it's looking pretty yellow as well. I don't think it's in any hardship. It's usually stays greener though, but it's had a lot. I would say that this year, at the end of the year, I played probably a few times, especially with buying trees 10s at a time. The little Japanese black pines, I got kind of free and loose with the rules when it came to those, and I would repot them uppot them into something and get them going, and then try to extend their roots, and then say, hey, let's do this instead. And and I would just kind of explain it off as we can get away with that. They're young, they're vigorous. We're here in California. Who wouldn't want to hang out there? So what that means is when you play like that, every one of those is a strike against the tree. And if you're looking at a tree that's young and vigorous and healthy Maybe you think you can get away with potting it and then deciding that you didn't like that pot and repotting it. Maybe you get away with that. Maybe you get away with doing a repot and a root reduction and a styling all in bam, 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 because you know, the repot wasn't that much of a root reduction, and you were kind of, you know, you could buy it, but in the end, when all was said and done, we were going into the fall with some pretty happy, healthy trees. And then we started getting those 90-degree days, and then we had some that were over 100 degrees up here. According to the stuff I found, it probably got up into the 110s up here because it was hotter than I thought on the ground, and we're always about 10 degrees above that. So over the next month to 2 months after that 90 degree, to put it in another way, that was at mid-October. By mid-November, I'd already brought out 3 dead trees that had never looked good again from that point. And then a couple of more continued to dip. And to that end, this is Franken Pine, and I believe Franken Pine was one of those that I repotted twice. I styled it more after I removed the old wire, and I began to think that I had an issue with the pot that it was already in, and so I repotted it, and it didn't respond to that. Right after that, we got our trillion degrees of heat, and that, if it wasn't already trying to tell me that it was in trouble before then, that finished off Franken Pine. So we've taken our hits this year, and what you learn about that is those times when you break the rules because the tree is young and it's vigorous, and you're just going to do this one more thing, and then it's going to take the next 3 years off looking all fabulous and licking its wounds, and it's going to be great. Maybe fine and good. I mean, for the most part, there's still more trees here. We still are at over 90 trees. The majority of those are still our Japanese black pine. So, you know, it's not like we were wiped out or anything. But I lost 4 or 5 good trees by playing a little fast and loose. And then everything I did wrong would eventually come into play when nature does things. And it wasn't even like, at the end of the day, it wasn't even like I didn't know that was a possibility. So instead of repotting, looking at a little tree and go, this is a fabulous little tree, I should put this in a bonsai pot and let's go ahead and get into the bonsai vortex. It seemed like a good idea at a time, but the idea would have been to wait a year before I repotted it, just because I just decided it would look really good in that pot. Because you never know what you're banking up, whatever energy you have for. Just because you've decided that you're going to stop doing things that'll tax the tree, that doesn't mean that nature doesn't have a trick or two up its sleeve. And I've even said that October is our month where a lot of times we get incredibly high roasting trees. And I have also learned that the same trees that can take 100-degree temperatures in July and August are the same trees that start to lose that ability to, they become more cold hardy. And as they become more cold hardy, they become less heat resistant. So that's what's going on there. Simply P, a little yellow. I'm concerned. It's been doing that at the same rate as the other trees that I lost. But I think it's relative. I think what I'm seeing in Simply P is just winter. It's still pushing out a lot of green stuff. I just have never seen this tree go off color the whole time I've had it. It's always been the one that was like more like a hard green and not an old army jacket green is how I would say that. Bringing us, I think Simply P is going to be okay though. And I don't think there's really necessarily anything wrong with it. It just might be its color this time of year now. This brings us to my weed collection. These guys are looking pretty ratty, but it's just this time of year. I need to go ahead and defoliate all of this stuff. As with our other trees, our trunks are getting fat on these guys. You can look at the root work on those. Look how long those exposed roots are on some of those. I'm pretty happy with this thing, and I've also don't do a lot to it. Weeding it and chopping it at the top is all I have ever done to this, basically. And we're seeing what happens if you allow more or less 18 Kodaheim maples to make themselves. Yeah. When I'm looking at that, that looks blurry. I don't know if that's really blurry or not. It might have been just the glare on the screen. Anyway, that's got us there. I know I've taken a minute off. It's been nice. It has. It's been raining, and we've just been hanging out, watching movies and watching bonsai videos and watching the world go around and enjoying the wet weather. But we really look forward to this year. We really look forward to seeing a dozen more pine trees sprinkled out right here in the next hour or so. I really look forward to watching these. These are bald cypress bud out all over. That's always, just like when everything decides to go one more trip around the sun, what a good time. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you for your support and your watching Frida and I little channel. I appreciate you, and Frida appreciates you. And like and subscribe if you guys haven't already. We'll probably bring in a pine tree and weed it or care for it or do something special to it tonight. Oh, one other quick thing. Our last drop was wiring, was part two of wiring this cork bark Japanese black pine. I pulled the branches down, and that was part 1 and part 2. I will continue to do that. I just want to back off and make sure the tree is cool with what we did so far before I do any more. Yeah. We're learning. Yeah. Anyway, I appreciate you. Frida appreciates you, and thank you so much for watching.